Okay, we should be live in 1 second. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Create Talks. Hello. Hey, welcome my guests, David and Karen Krewson. Welcome. We are so glad it is 2024. I still am in shock that it's 2024. It's a whole year of God coming. So I wrote soar into 2024. Get into your hang glider and soar into the good things that God is doing. But David and Karen, share a little bit about how we met. It's kind of a funny story. You're going to love this. So go for it.
Well, I go back a little ways with Kevin. I met Kevin back in 2011, and we ended up playing 7 years of tennis in Reading before we moved in 2018. And then we kept in touch ever since, and our relationship continues to grow today. And as you know, it kind of blossomed to a different level this last spring.
Yeah, because Theresa and I got involved.
Yeah, that's right. Come on, you got to get the girls involved. That's right.
Oh.
And we've been on so many adventures of seeing people get healed out in the marketplace. We've done prophetic art treasure hunts. We both of us as couples love to reach out to people. And so when they both moved down to Southern California at the same time that we moved down, we got to really see one another in that capacity as well. So welcome, David and Karen. And one of the reasons why I've asked them to be here is because in our creative journey, as we discuss who we are in our identity, one of the things that happens is that we can get stuck in our relationships. I don't know about you, but David and Karen have many stories they're going to share. Kevin and I have many. And so we wanted to talk. They're also going to be involved in our upcoming Mastery Marriage Workshop, which is January the 20th. We're so excited, 9 to 4 Pacific Standard Time online. So wherever you are, you don't have to leave. You can stay. It's both for married couples and for singles that want to learn how to do relationships. So it's going to be fun. I'm going to share a little bit because we have my screen, because we have a wonderful discount for this event as well. And we want everybody that can to get there. And David, what are you excited about in this workshop?
Well, that's going to be awesome. I know there's going to be massive amounts of joy, and you need a lot of joy in marriage. You need it in relationships. You need it in life. You need it in overcoming difficult circumstances. It's awesome medicine.
Oh, yeah, it is. Karen, anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just think it's gonna shift perspectives. A lot of times we can get stuck in a perspective and just kind of look at what's not going right. And I feel like that this is going to flip the story, so people will start looking at the things that are going right and the things that they can actually do to make it even better.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very encouraging and very helpful. And I think it's going to break open. Will be breakthrough.
Yeah. I think so too. And right now we're offering a special for $20 off of the cost. So if you use the code 20 off, that's 20OFF. When you check out, you're going to see it there. The schedule's there on my website. Everything that you might want to know, again, fully recorded. So even if you can't make the whole thing, it's all recorded, but we're going to have small groups. We're going to have so many places for you to grow in your calling. Both Kevin and I will be sharing, but we're also going to be having small groups, and those are going to be the game changers.
Yeah,
and
come on.
Talking about what you're learning in response to the different teachings. So again, January 20th, don't miss this. We're just excited to have you.
Yeah.
Married and singles. And guys too, there's only one price per couple. So you don't have to pay twice, just once, which is awesome.
Yep.
Come on. I love it. So let's get into your story, you two. I mean, I'm so excited to have you on and to hear your story about how we met and how we've become so close as friends because of all that has happened in our lives and sharing heart to heart. And there's something about couples being vulnerable, isn't there? It's just, It's so vital. We need one another so much. So let's hear from both of your stories of how the brokenness that happened in your lives that brought you both together. So David, I'll have you go first, and then Karen.
Yeah. So my first marriage was a failure. My wife at that time, she ended up leaving. And the short testimony that kind of gives you some perspective is I was married for almost 17 years. And I came home from teaching in high school one day, and I found out that the home was empty. The furniture was empty. The kids were gone, and it rocked me. And so the first thing I did, because it was very intense leading up to that point, I just said, "Praise the Lord," because something had
Wow.
shifted. And I immediately went to prayer and I said, "God, this is not the time to ask, but if
Mm,
you have a mate for me in the future, you're going to have to pick her.
come
And
on.
she's going to have to know, and I'm going to have to know without a doubt." And I kind of left it at that. And then I just embraced the pain and
Mm,
stepped into it. And it was not easy.
yeah.
It was probably one of the, in Psalm 23, we walk through the valley of shadow of death.
Yeah.
Just that one snippet, I lived it. And it's a really dark time, but it was ended up being a fruitful time because 4.5 years later, Papa God dropped Karen out of heaven,
Woo!
and he
You know,
redeemed. He's the God of redemption.
yeah, I think I just want to just camp on one thing you said before we move on to Karen. This thing that like sometimes we try to avoid pain because it's hard. It's hard to look at your life, giving 17 years of your life and then seeing this thing happen. But that's where the fruitfulness happened, is in you digging deep with the Lord, not alone. That thing is so vital for us to understand. I mean, that's one of the things that brings the joy factor into marriage, is being able to go to the hard places so that we can bring our full selves to the place that the other spouse needs. And so if you hadn't have done that hard work, your relationship with Karen wouldn't be fruitful like it is right now. So more power. That's amazing. Okay, so now flip side, Karen, what happened?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm divorced as well. So I've been married 23 years, and kind of like 2 weeks before my daughter's high school graduation, the spouse at the time just said he was leaving. And so it was a major shock in my life, needless to say. And just kind of how I've had been just from trauma in my past and growing up, I would squish a lot of emotions and things. And so I squished and I just kept on working. And I eventually found myself in the hospital. And I just had kind of lost my way during that marriage with the Lord. I never didn't believe, but I wasn't walking in the fullness and the power of who I was. I didn't even know who I was really anymore. I just fear and anxiety just gripped me all the time. So I was in the hospital in a feeding tube, and I hadn't heard the Lord's voice in a long time, and I
Mm,
heard Him say, "You can keep doing it your way and die, or you can do it my way and live."
wow.
And at that moment, I chose Him. I just said, I'm going to learn to hear your voice again. I'm going to embrace the pain. I'm going to
Mhm.
look it head on. And I started doing all the things where I could hear Him again, where I could heal and get healed. And so then about 3 years after that, a friend of mine said, "Oh, there's this website called Christian Cafe." And so she decided to make a profile for me, which I was like, I told the Lord, I was like, I am never going to get married again. And so she made a profile. I had a 10-day free trial, and she ended up finding David and said, "I think y'all would be a good match."
Yay, me.
And so just to get her to be quiet and not ask me if I contacted him, I said, "Hi, I like your profile. Let me know if you want to chat." And he answered that night. And then 6 months later, we were married. And
Come on.
we lived 214 miles apart. I was in the Bay Area. He was in Redding, which 214 is Valentine's Day. So I thought I didn't know a whole lot about the prophetic then, but I thought that's pretty cool.
I love how God brought you two together at the right time
Mhm.
and after you had faced your pain. And Karen, one of the things I wanted to add to this story is like, without God's strength, we cannot have a fulfilled relationship. There is absolutely no way. And in the chat, please put your name down, where you're from. We want to hear about your own story in your own life relationally, and what you really want to see happen. And if you have any questions for David and Karen, put that in the chat too. I love this thing called second. There's a second wind. There's a
Mm,
thing that's
yeah.
happening, and one of the things that we talked about before is how sometimes when you are divorced, there's such a shame in that. And like what you were dealing with, Karen, is just the shame factor. It's almost like I am bad because my husband rejected me without me even knowing it. And so God had to intervene, and you said yes. And so there's that thing of what you've had to walk through, but you've seen a lot of couples that have
Mhm.
had this thing of shame, of almost like, well, your marriage isn't as good, or you're not going to be successful because of. And even with the Lord, people have that concept like, oh, well, you're not going to, and it's just wrong. And it's so hurtful, I know, in so many different ways. But share about that. Share about what you've gone through, and how with a blended family too, what you went through. But divorce can be like a death. It can be like a letting go of something that you've spent so much time in trying to build, then it's gone. So what would you say to people that have either they're divorced, or they came from a family where their mother or father was divorced? Share a little bit about the healing, and what you feel God would say to them right now.
Mhm. Yeah, I kind of had like a double whammy because my parents were divorced, and
Mm,
when I grew up, and I was also in Texas, very much a stigma. And so, as a little girl, it was like I didn't want any of my friends to know that my parents were divorced. That was their choice, but it just put shame on me from a very young age with divorce. And so I kind of was like, I'm never getting divorced. And so then when, your story happens and you kind of just don't have, you can't do anything about it anymore. It's like, oh, that shame wants to continue to speak to you. And
yeah,
yeah, the biggest thing is that I'm not disqualified,
come
and
on.
I have a life that's supposed to be abundant,
Yeah.
and me just being divorced doesn't disqualify me for that. And as I've been going through my healing and also just learning my own identity in Christ, it's like I've been able to impart that to others. A cool testimony is we moved into a place where, like, all next door to us, it's like 4 different second marriages. And I was meeting
Mm.
them and I asked them, I was like, so how long have you been together? And both of their heads dropped and
Wow.
they mumbled, well, it's a second marriage, like super shame all over him. And so I just said, that's awesome. I said, isn't God good? I said, and so I was just telling them what God sees in their marriage and what God sees in them. And when I responded that way, their heads lifted up. I mean, I
Mm.
Come
physically
on.
saw
Yeah.
the shame come off of them. And since then, they've actually just like they brought us a Christmas gift. And I think just that connection of
Yeah.
like, she doesn't get to talk to you anymore.
Amen.
And it was opposite of what kind of that culture wanted to say to them. So we
Uh,
do have a voice, and we also actually, if we've gone through it, we actually can speak into the truth into other people's lives and help them.
oh, that's beautiful, Karen. I love it. I love how when you touch people where they're the most broken, and you affirm them, and you value and you validate their story, it actually becomes a meeting point
Mm.
of love and of connection, because God doesn't want us to live that way. I mean, he wants us to live fulfilled and know that God is a God that redeems everything. He's not
Everything.
a God that says, "Oh, that's too hard to redeem." No, he redeems everything in our lives. That is beautiful. What about for you, David?
Well, there's different times in my life where your faith becomes real. And this was one of those where I had a choice.
Yeah.
And I could either lean into God, or I could just say, God, why is this happening to me? This is another one of those valleys, and I don't know if I can dig my way out of here or claw my way out of here. But I did choose to lean into him. And I think the most important part was I owned my part of the dissolution of the marriage, because I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
I realized that God was working on me. I made a covenant with him in the first marriage to death do us part, and I was in it, and no matter how difficult it was. And so I owned my part of why it failed. And then I looked in the mirror and I just started to ask Holy Spirit, what is it you want to do in me? What changes do you want to do in me? And he started to do those things, oftentimes without me even knowing it.
Come
And
on.
I just began to draw closer to him. I mean, I'd made some mistakes along the way because it was very lonely, but it was a time where I was stretched.
Yeah.
It grew me deeper in a relationship with him.
Wow. I love that. I love the fact that you owned your story. I mean,
Yeah,
that's all part of it. Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
had a boss once, right as I became a manager, and he says, as a manager, you're going to make mistakes. Just fail forward. And
Come
so
on.
a great life principle, and I use it in every aspect of it. And this is a prime example.
So I felt like there's people out there that are or will be listening to this that you need to know. And in our marriage workshop, we'll talk about that. That it's okay if you failed, and it's okay if you feel like you blew up your marriage. It's okay if you feel like, okay, am I going to be single for the rest of my life because I've made decisions when I was younger to party, to do this, to that. I mean, there's so many different scenarios that we could paint as far as why people disqualify them from receiving the benefits of having a fulfilled marriage or relationship. It's just God. It's just who he is.
Yeah.
And so right now we speak that there is a do-over, that the God of restoration is right here with us today. And he's taking away the shame. He's saying, just own what was your part and let go and let God into that situation, because he's with you in that. And if it happened because of your parents, he can heal you and show you that, no, there are people that have good marriages. We're going to help you with that in this workshop. We have, I think we have a couple questions here. Let me just look here. Yes. What is the key saying you would want a newly married couple to know? Oh, that is a great one. Okay. What is the key?
Go do it.
Go for it. Come on, Karen.
Yeah, well, this might sound a little different, but I mean, as a woman, I just witness a lot of sometimes talking about their mate. It could be a woman or a man in not such great terms if they're upset or whatever. And so I just purposed in my heart just to talk to God, and to keep very, very short accounts and forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't want anything to build. I don't want to have a list. I do, I just want to. And so really what I'll do, if I feel something, I'll just go. I have a journal with the Lord, and I forgive. I talk to him. I get his perspective, and then I move on. So I don't lose a whole lot of time on something that's just not from him.
Yeah.
And that was working. I didn't get there right away, but it was a constant, like, that's my heart. I just want to keep, and I don't want to bring other people into it because they're not in my marriage. And sometimes it's actually not the best advice.
Right.
It actually can stir up more dissension.
Yeah.
So,
David, what about you? That's good. Come on.
Well, one thing that stands out is we did marriage counseling before we got married, and there was 4 pillars of marriage. And the one that I can only remember, I mean, it's probably the most important one, the way I see it, but it's acceptance. And so I fell in love with Karen for how God made her. And so as we came together, dating and then marriage, I just accepted her for the different nuances, how she does certain things. I wasn't trying to change Karen to make her like someone who I wanted. I
Yeah.
fell in love with her for who she was. And I have to always, I go back to that to this day. I just accept her for our differences. I accept her for how she does things, and just how we communicate. And it's kind of, it's that pillar really stands out, and it's foundational for me on how I look at Karen.
Oh, I love that. It's so powerful. I think acceptance is such a big key for growing in trust.
Yeah.
Because if you don't feel like you're enough with your partner, then you will always feel insecure. And so that acceptance is a huge pillar. Remember that, everybody. Here's another question. For those that have married again after a divorce, what advice do you give those couples to choose to love and commit again?
Yeah. Make sure that God chooses them,
Yeah,
because it has to be God choosing it. And then also make sure that you've done all the inner healing work that you need to do. So you don't bring all the scar tissue, we call it scar tissue from our past, in. It's impossible to get rid of all of it, but realize that it is complex when you do get remarried, especially if there's children involved.
yes,
That's a whole different issue, the blended family thing. But to grow as one, you just have to be really purposeful. And I've just realized, we realized very early on, if we just call it trigger for lack of better words, if something seemed a little escalated, it's like, oh, this is actually something from the past that hasn't been fully surrendered to Jesus and healed by him. And so we would go after that.
good.
So that we wouldn't continue to have it in our marriage.
What I love about what you're saying, and this is for all of you that are listening right now, is the concept that you created is that we are going to go after that together. And so the concept that's so vital for any kind of a person who is deciding to get married again and after a divorce, it's like it's so important to know, like, instead of it being their problem, no, we have a problem if one of the spouses has that issue, and approaching it like we are directing our attention toward that together, not against that person, is it's a game changer. It's so powerful. I love what you said. David, anything else you want to add?
Oh, definitely. Our first date was 9.5 hours.
Oh, come on.
And at
Oh,
the
love it.
end of it, it went really well. At the end of it, it was about 10 o'clock at night, and I had to drive 2.5 hours to Reading. And we prayed, and we said, God, this has been awesome, and we want your will to be done in our lives. And so if you're in this and we're to be together, we want you to be in the center of it. And if not, it's okay, but make that clear to us. So I think the first thing is make sure he's in the center of it. And we actually have lived that out. And
Yeah.
so in dating, in marriage, we make sure that we're doing devotionals, we're worshiping together, we're in the word together, we're talking about the word, we're praying together. And so we just don't say it, we're actually living it out. Because once you have failed once, I mean, we wanted our second half of life, our second marriage, to be the best. And we know that the best comes from him. And so that's been our purpose in our heart, even when it's difficult. And I guess that's the second thing I would say is it's not going to be easy. I mean, we came in with rose-colored glasses with a blended family, being very optimistic, and we didn't realize the challenges.
Yeah.
There's no textbook. And so it's been very difficult on our relationship dealing with 4 different children. And so just, you have to grit it out. You have to work at it. It's hard, but you have to press in. And if you can press in, if he's in the middle of it, because he's met us everywhere.
Yeah.
I think so too. I think that's exactly right, is putting him first and having it be about us handling this together, like we talked about, versus I don't like your kids, or this is happening over here, and having there be a division versus a connection. That's so powerful. Wow, you guys, you are amazing. I love that. We have so many people joining: Michael, Carol, Joy, Carol Verte. This is awesome. I wanted to go on because one of the things that we've talked about for the last probably, I don't know, maybe a year or so, 9 months or so, is this book called The Connection Codes. And it's CONNECTION Connection, and then Codes with an S by Jim Wilder. And this book has really revolutionized Kevin and I. We'll be talking a lot about what we've learned from this book in our marriage workshop and singles workshop. But this is kind of a real strong game changer because it's not hard. It's simple words, simple techniques that you can add into your relationship and into any relationship that makes all the difference in the world. So how can this book and the principles behind the book bring joy into other people's lives? How has it helped you?
Well, I'm a very emotional person. And Kevin can attest to this. He says he almost drove off the road when I got excited after he shared something very important to me. And so I could have probably approached that a little bit differently, but let me explain. In connection codes, you learn very quickly, and it actually brings some joy when you realize that emotions are okay. And for 60 years, I was told the opposite. That you just push those and you're sharing emotion and that's not good. And so if you communicate the emotion, that's really healthy. If you communicate through the emotion, that's not so good. So let me kind of explain what that looks like. So if I'm driving down the road and someone cuts in front of me, I communicate the emotion saying, wow, I don't think that was safe. But if I communicate through the emotion, I yell and I go, how can you do that? Really? You knucklehead. That would be communicating through the emotion. So it's been a learning process, but we're making the transition and it is powerful.
It's actually helped because I come from the other extreme of not expressing my emotions. And so when before this, when he would go through his emotion, I would actually kind of like, what do I do with this? Kind of like, what do I do? And so it's actually helped me because it's actually like, it's not healthy for David not to be able to communicate to me. And so we had kind of gotten to this pattern where he's like, well, I better not share this emotion with her because she can't handle it. So that would actually create disconnection from us. And we want to be connected. So it's helped me to say, wow, and it's also helped me because it gives you a wheel that I'm sure we'll talk about at the workshop. But for me to actually recognize, okay, I'm actually feeling this. I wouldn't have thought I was, but it kind of makes you really like go, oh, I actually am feeling fear. I'm actually feeling sad or whatever it is. So it's good. And it connects you with your mate.
It totally does. I just want to camp on what you just both said, because in sometimes the Christian world, we think that emotions are bad, or just get over it, or let Jesus take over, and so nobody feels anger because it's a wrong emotion. It's wrong to be so afraid. And so what happens is, like, we don't realize, like, in the Bible, they were always sharing their emotions. I mean, in Joshua 1, God tells Joshua 3 or 4 times, do not be afraid. Do not fear. So fear is a thing that we all deal with. Anger is a thing that we all deal with. And so what happens is, like, if we don't share these emotions, like what you talked about, Karen, they get bottled up. Or if we share through the emotion, not how we really feel in that emotion, then again, we are sabotaging our own existence. It's like saying that okay, because you can't walk very well, you can't walk again. No, you walk because you're a human being. You're able to breathe because you're a human being. Feelings are a part of how God wired us. And he didn't say when he made man, okay, now I made you in my image, but these feelings, nah, don't buy it. No, he goes, no, I made you in my image. So Jesus was had emotion. He cried when Lazarus died. He wept over Jerusalem. He was angry at the money changers in the temple. I mean, he had varying emotions throughout his life, and they were good. It doesn't say anywhere that those were evil or those were not needed. So if you've dealt with that, we're going to help you out because it's a part of life. And if you've learned to stuff them, like what you talked about, Karen, like I did, guess what? There's freedom on the other side. Come on. There is. Let me see if there's any more questions here. Love it when you guys ask questions. Ah, Amber McDaniel. We love you, Amber.
Amber.
Knows both of them. EM Agape. Guys, we're so glad you're on. If you have any questions for them in the last 10 minutes, Amber McDaniel, you can ask a great question. The rest of you can too. Let us know. But one of the things I wanted to share is this last thing, that so many people, they scrimp on the most important thing and they end up regretting it later. It's just true. It's like, you don't scrimp on relationship. Whatever you do, this is Mama T, Theresa, speaking to you right now. Do not scrimp on relationship. Make the time, invest in your relationships. Why? Because that is what you will be remembered for the rest of your life. I was just reading, I'm reading through the Bible, and I'm reading through in, it's in Genesis 9, all of the different descendants of Noah, and all of their names are listed for a reason, because that's part of how we're wired. We're wired to pass on things from generation to generation. And I don't know about you out there, and I know David and Karen believes this, but I want to impact my children and my grandchildren to have healthy relationships by how I treat my spouse, how I treat myself, and how I treat others. That's just that legacy is more important than a book I write. It's more important than an art piece I create, because that's the thing that will outlast me, is how well I've done relationships. So I want to encourage you to invest in your relationship in 2024.
Yep.
Go to the marriage workshop on the 20th. Whatever you do, if you're busy, buy it, because what's fully recorded, it will be sent to you. But I wanted to hear your heart for that. Like, how important is it to invest in something that you feel will change your relationship? David and Karen, share about that.
Well, the most important relationship is with Jesus.
Yes.
If you're married, your marriage is your second most important relationship. But bottom line, relationships this side of eternity is the most, I believe, probably the most important thing, that you want to be good at it. And anytime you get an opportunity to take advantage of a session with you and Kevin in it, it's going to be massively filled with joy. There's going to be breakthrough. So I'm hoping that we have an overload, that we just Zoom blows up.
I agree. Come on. I agree. And share this with others, guys. Remember, it's $20 off right now. You can put in the code Randy again for the marriage workshop. There's $20 off. And there's also a discount for Create Academy members as well. But we do have a question. What are some ways or ideas that you have to invest in your marriage? What do you do to invest in your marriage? So David and Karen, I want to hear this. What are some ways that you invest?
Well, we intentionally make time to talk to one another. We intentionally do fun things together, like go for walks, or go to Starbucks, have a date, go on adventures. Yeah, so and even like right now, we just joined your Create Academy, and we're doing that together. Yeah. And so that's a whole new one. So couples do that, because it's really been awesome, the first 2 lessons.
Right.
So what else would you say?
Well, I think the biggest one, and we talked this when we were dating, is that we wanted the second half of our life, when we were married 46 and 48. And I think we spend most of our days together. So I think we've probably missed maybe 5-6 nights since we've been married where we haven't been together.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so go off on individual jaunts with friends. If we do, we go together. And so we've purposed in our heart that we connect, and we want to spend our time as much time as God's going to give us together. We spend it doing various things. And it's just, it's just connection.
I totally agree with you. Like I mean, we all four of us, we went on this prophetic art treasure hunt in Huntington Beach, and it was so much fun. And I mean, it's just doing stuff together. They went off with a couple people, we went off with a couple people, and to come back and to share all the good stuff, doing things together. I think that so many times that in life, there's that part where you need girlfriends, you need guy friends, but then you need couples that you grow together with. So that's a big core value of us. And like, we just booked our tickets today to South Africa. Woo! And it was crazy because the pastor who is inviting us out, because it's it's a lot of money to get to South Africa. Well, maybe you should just come, Kevin. And I go, no way. We were both going. It's that thing where you have to realize that the end goal isn't just the ministry, but it's the shared experiences together. Mm-hmm. And so for Randy, for the rest of you guys out there, they're asking these questions. The best thing is to create fun as well. If you don't have fun, you are missing out. Yeah. So I just have to say that a lot of couples who deal with a lot of things as far as like a second marriage or blended families, if you don't have fun time together, you're going to die. You're going to die.
You got to laugh. You got to laugh.
You got to laugh. You got to have joy. You got to really, and connection codes will teach us that too. Is like, we're wired for joy. And we'll be talking about that at the marriage workshop. The other thing that Kevin and I do is we read the Bible together every morning, and we share about what we get out of that. So we do a feeding of the Lord's presence. We also pray for our family, pray for the needs that we have, and we practice the connection codes. And so those are some of the stuff that we do, which you'll find out more in at the marriage workshop. But it's amazing. I have to say this because some of you out there that are listening are going to need this. It's not too hard for God to bring back that spark. Mm-hmm. It's not too hard. Mm-hmm. And it's not too hard if you're single and you're older and you're wondering, am I ever going to find the right person? No, God is going to find the right person. I have so many testimonies of people that I've raised up that now are married and they're just so fulfilled. And the other thing that I just wanted to say in closing, because I felt like this was something that God was speaking to people out there, is that there's always room for more. Like it's funny how when I saw David and Karen and they began to share testimonies of them going out themselves to do treasure hunts or reach out to people, their eyes would both light up like, wait a second, we found something new that we could do together with Jesus, and we both have so much fun in doing it. And so creating times when you're having joy with the Lord together it's just like the icing on the top. Like if you don't do that, you'll learn how to do that. Yeah. Both in Create Academy and in this marriage workshop. But we want you to get to that place to where you get to be you in relationship. That's another thing. One more thing I felt, and I'm going to give this to you guys. I feel like there were people that are listening today that never felt like they could be themselves in their marriage or in relationships with others. God wants to change that. He wants you to be you. Yeah. And he wants you to like be able to share your feelings and who you are with those closest to you. And we want to help you do that. Yeah. But David and Karen, any words that you have for people that you were sensing were on this?
Yeah, I'm hearing 5 and 2. And that we all, Karen brought her 5 loaves and 2 fish. I brought my 5 loaves and 2 fish. And then Jesus did the rest. And I think we all had, just like you said, we all have certain ways that he built us. Mm-hmm. And we just bring that to the marriage. And our spouse brings that to the marriage. Or someone brings what they have to a relationship, and then let God do what only he can do.
Woo. Oh, I love that.
And I just feel like everyone should start speaking life words because they matter. They matter. So just really take a check on what you release and speak life words. So there is hope. There's always hope with Jesus. So you could look at, I know, don't compare, don't compare. I mean, don't do that. And just know he always finds a way. He makes a way where there is no way. And he did that in my life. And that was prophesied over me. He will make a way where there is no way, but it's his way. It's his way. So I just have let go of a lot of things where it's like, well, but it's supposed to look like this. And I've let that go because that was my own thing. And he has made a way where there was no way for me.
Oh, come on. I love this talk. So guys, if you know of anybody who needs this, if you've signed up and man, I feel like there's Sally over here or George over here, that single that got dumped when she was 18 and never has dated again, whatever the situation, invite them to come. No, we have that $20 off with the code 20 off. Also, I'm doing a Q&A, a Facebook Live on Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to answer any questions you have on relationships, to talk about the marriage workshop. So come join me. And anything you want to ask about my own relationship with Kevin, etc., I would love to share my journey with you. But guys, it's been so great having you on. Don't you love David and Karen? Make sure you share this Facebook Live with other people. Yay. We love each other so much. And we'll see you guys on January 20th. And be blessed. Can't wait to see all that God has. Remember, you were born to create inside your relationships with joy. I'll see you soon. Bye, David and Karen.
Bye.